Welcome, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. And we're back with another episode of Heaven on Earth. Yesterday, I had such fun on the golf course that I started reflecting about how golf is like life. Now, part of my thinking process was to remember when I first learned to golf and adding up the years to see how many that was. And holy smokes, it's 60 years since I learned how to golf. I was 13 when my mom took my brother and me out for the very first time. She kind of dragged me. I wasn't exactly kicking and screaming, but inside I was, because I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to learn this. And I was a teenager. Getting up at that time of the morning did not fit for me. So regardless, there was something about the green grass and being in nature and the serenity of it all that sort of soothed my soul as I went through the painful transition of not having a clue how to golf to doing it badly and then doing it poorly, and then once in a while having a good shot, and then eventually getting to enough level of proficiency that I enjoyed the game. So it was a long transition for me, but I have to say that now I absolutely love the game. The operative word with the game is you play golf. You don't work golf, you play golf, just like you play soccer or play cards or play any other kind of game. It's play. Well, of course, to me, part of Heaven on Earth is the idea of playing, that we're here to experience and bring all kinds of things into our lives, and of course ultimately the things that we most want, anything that we deem to be wonderful and exciting and fulfilling for us. That's the dream, right? The challenge though is how we go about doing that. So what has to happen? Well, obviously when you're playing a definitive game, then there's an object, there's a rule, there's an end result that you're hoping for, and then a process that you go through. So with golf, of course, the first thing is you need to pick your target and you look towards your target. So some yards down the road, there is a hole with a flag out of it, and that's what you're shooting for. You want your ball to go in the cup in as few strokes as possible. Well, there's your goal. So the first rule of life is that you fix your eyes on a target, something that you want. Now, then the next step, of course, is of course in golf, you have this little object, a little white ball, and you have a club that with any amount of luck and skill is going to carry you down the fairway closer and closer to the pin. So at some point you'll be able to putt that golf ball into the hole. Well, here's the trick though. If you're too focused on the target, the end result that you want, and you're not focused on the ball, you can easily miss the ball. My mother said to me countless times, don't lift your head, keep your eye on the ball. And so, in fact, I had bangs, and she would grab a hold of my bangs, and if I was lifting my head at all, of course, it would hurt. So I learned, keep your eye on the ball, keep your head down, keep your eye on the ball. So that was a huge thing. And of course, isn't that so true with life, that if we allow ourselves to get distracted by everything going on around us or everybody around us, then we don't have our eye on the ball, and it's easy to miss and not fulfill whatever dream that we have. Well, the third lesson that I learned from golf, it took me a while to learn this because I was fiercely independent, and I thought I had to do all the work. So Lee Trevino, one of my golf gurus in a class one time said, let the club do the work. And I'm really, what do you mean? Because I'd watched lots of, particularly men with lots of upper body strength, and they just power that club all the way through to hit it as far as they possibly could. Well, I'm a small woman. I don't have that kind of upper body strength. So how am I going to succeed at that? Well, Lee Trevino wasn't a whole lot bigger than me. And he was a phenomenal golfer. Well, what happened? He let the club do the work. He just said, okay, well, I'll hang on to the club and I know how to swing and I'll just let the club take the ball where it's supposed to go. And he did, time after time after time after time. It was just miraculous to watch. So again, I thought, now there's a very interesting lesson for life, that how often is it important to let the tools that we have actually do the work? We might be the ones holding them or manipulating them or orchestrating the thing somehow. But it's not just us, that we have a tool for a reason. So if we become part of that tool, people who play a musical instrument, when they become one with their instrument, there's a flow in that. They don't fight the instrument, they let the instrument help them create the sound that they most want. So how often do you let the tools that you have at your disposal do the work so that it's easier for you? Because there's nothing more frustrating than struggling and fighting and trying to, jam something into something, when in fact it would be much easier to just let it flow, to let go of that notion that, well, I have to be the one to make this work. And of course, I've seen some pretty odd things on the golf course that you would never expect. There's lots of things on the golf course that you have no control over. You don't have control over the weather, for one thing. You don't have control over the state of the grass, whether your ball's going to land in deep grass that's really hard to get out of, or it's in the sand trap. So there's hazards all over the place, water, that can just make your ball disappear, and then you're fishing for another ball at some point. My two brothers even watched crows fly down on a mountain golf course, scoop up their balls off the fairway in their beaks, and off they'd go. And they're standing there like, what? My ball just disappeared. What is this saying, the rules about that, if a critter snatches your ball? So there's all kinds of interesting things that can happen that you have no control over. So you just do the best you can with whatever circumstances land in front of you. It poured rain for a short period of time yesterday when we were on the golf course. And so we fortunately, we were close to some shelter. So we hunkered down and waited to see if it would clear. Well, we noticed some people in carts heading back to the clubhouse because they weren't waiting. It was too wet and they were done for the day. Well, we were determined, because it was a tournament, we were determined to finish. So we waited it out, and after a few minutes, the sun came out, the wind died down, and it ended up being great for the holes that remained. So these are the choices that we get to make as we go along in life. Does every swing of mine result in a perfect golf shot? Whew, no way. I have plenty of those shots I call stoopy-doop shots that you go, oh man, that didn't, my body wasn't working well, or I turned the club in my hand, or something went wrong. And well, I could beat myself up for it. And I've seen people do that on the golf course. I saw a fellow who was so angry because his game was not going the way he wanted it to, that he just heaved his whole set of clubs, bag and all, into one of the ponds on the course and then stormed off the course. And I'm going, well, I think golf is not his game. That's pretty stressful. So if the games that you're playing stress you so badly that it causes real anguish or upset within you, don't play them. Either find another game to play or find a way to calm yourself down. And lots of times I think that people get so critical of themselves, and I know this because I've been very critical of myself too. I don't stress about a bad shot, because that's just the way it goes. Life is like that. We don't make all the shots perfectly. We miss more than we actually hit. Babe Ruth was a classic example. He had far more misses than he had home runs, but we don't remember him for the thousands of misses that he had. We remember him for the home run record that he had. So it's the same thing with golf. I had one shot yesterday that I considered to be a perfect golf shot. It landed on the green and about pin high, and it was so pretty and it felt so good. And I turned to my daughter-in-law and the other gal that was golfing with us, and I said, that's what keeps me coming back. A shot like that is what keeps me coming back. Same thing for me with life, that when I have something wonderful happen where everything fell into place in a way that I maybe never dreamed it could possibly happen. I wanted it to, but I didn't know that it could. When serendipity weighed in and everything just turned out miraculously well, that's what helps me get up the next morning and the next morning and the next morning. The disappointments, the sorrows, the aggravations throughout the day don't mean so much anymore, because I've had something that was magic for me, something that turned out in a beautiful way. So I think this is what we want to focus on when it comes to heaven on earth, to say, well, we don't know what the vagaries of life are going to bring to us. We just don't. However, if we're prepared, if we have our tools at our disposal, if we have our mindset, an attitude of, well, I'm just going to play with this until things start to turn out the way I want. Or I get to change my mind if I'm finding that I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I would. So I'll just shift my attention and try something else. That's the beauty of being a creator on planet Earth, is we get to create this part of the scenario that we most want. And then the universe weighs in to support us in whatever else is going on. So that's what I want you to think about this week is what is it that you most enjoy about the game of life? How are you going to play from here on in? If you haven't been playing in a way that you feel serves you best, how are you going to change that? What are you going to choose so that the next shot, the next opportunity, the next move forward works for you and brings you a great deal of joy? Because to me, that's heaven on earth. If I have those joyful moments, those happy moments, those peaceful and serene moments to make it easier to shift through the tougher times in life, then I'm good. I'm really good. Now, you know, you're magnificent enough to do this. I know you are. You need to know that you are. So until next time, focus on your little piece of heaven on earth, and we'll see you again.